Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're analyzing a really sophisticated new cyber threat. It feels like a perfect storm of modern digital fears, really.
It really is.
We're not talking about your basic phishing scam here. We are dissecting a highly coordinated campaign called PyStoreRAT. And the twist is how it fuses, AI content generation and software supply chain attacks.
And it's tailored to a very specific target.
Exactly. It's made to compromise the very people hired to protect our networks.
Yeah, what makes this so urgent is that PyStoreRAT isn't targeting the general public. It's aiming right for the informed user. IT admins, security analysts, OSINT professionals, the people who are, constantly hunting for new tools.
So their own curiosity is being weaponized against them.
Completely. The trust they have in the open source community is the vulnerability here.
That's the ultimate reversal. So our mission today is to cut through the complexity of this Morphosec threat report. We want to explain the full attack lifecycle of PyStoreRAT, detail its pretty aggressive evasion and spreading capabilities, and then, most importantly,
Give some real, actionable defense steps.
exactly, things you can implement immediately.
And the intelligence here shows that the threat actors have reached a new level of sophistication. They're integrating TTPS tactics, techniques, and procedures that exploit the trust we place in platforms like GitHub and, well, all the hype around AI tools.
Okay, let's unpack this operation then. Let's start at the point of entry. It all begins with deception in the supply chain.
Yeah.
I think the MITRE framework calls it T1195.002.
Right.
And it leverages GitHub, a platform that's, it's built on community and trust.
And that trust model is the primary vector. The report identified a really crucial nuance in how they did this. Instead of creating brand new accounts, which might get flagged,
Right, that would be suspicious.
they abuse previously dormant GitHub accounts. These are accounts that have been quiet for months, maybe years, and then they suddenly just spring back to life.
That's a brilliant evasion tactic. A brand new account posting sensitive code might raise an immediate red flag, but an established one, even if it was quiet.
Yeah.
That feels more legitimate.
It bypasses so many automated reputation filters. It's reputation laundering, essentially.
Well, what are they publishing from these accounts?
Well, this is where the AI twist comes in. These reactivated accounts are used to host AI-generated repositories. The example from the investigation was a repo named OSINT toolkit.
Oh, that's the perfect lure.
It is. It advertises AI-generated projects, promising tools to help analysts. It's designed to draw in the exact high-value target they want.
So you, the analyst, you see this new toolkit, you clone it, and you're moving straight into the execution phase, T1204. You have to manually run the project thinking it's a legitimate setup. What happens right then at that moment?
That's where the PyStoreRAT backdoor gets embedded, but they don't just dump the file in the initial code. They use what's called a maintenance commit.
A maintenance commit, why the extra step?
It's all about evading detection. A lot of automated security tools, they scan the first commit on a new repository very, very closely. They're looking for obvious flags. By injecting the malicious code in a later update, maybe disguised as a bug fix or a dependency update, it looks like standard code hygiene. It just slips right past those initial gatekeepers.
Yeah.
It's psychological warfare targeting developers' routines.
That attention to detail is unnerving. It really suggests a group that understands security processes inside and out. So once that project is executed, we move to the core payload. PyStoreRAT itself. Walk us through this backdoor.
Okay, so PyStoreRAT is fundamentally a JavaScript HTA backdoor. HTA stands for HTML application.
And that means it's using built-in Windows tools to run, right?
Exactly. mhta.exe specifically. This is a classic living off the land technique. Because it's a legitimate signed Microsoft process, it's inherently harder to catch with traditional file signatures. Once it lands, the infection moves fast, and it starts with deep reconnaissance.
With system profiling. Before it does anything else, it checks its surroundings. What kind of information is it looking for?
The loader's first stage is aggressive host profiling. That falls under T1082, System Information Discovery. It gathers OS versions, hardware details, network configs. At the same time, it's also doing T518 software discovery, which means it's listing out every application you have installed.
It's basically drawing a map of the system it just invaded.
A very detailed map. And crucially, it's checking for enemies. This is the dynamic evasion part that makes it so adaptable.
Right, this is where it gets really interesting.
It is. The malware dynamically adjusts its behavior when it detects specific antivirus or EDR solutions on the host. Think of it like an if-then statement. If it detects AV vendor X, it immediately shifts to a different execution path, or it changes where it puts things in memory.
So if the loader sees a common AV product, It can literally change its shape to avoid being seen.
Absolutely. This adaptive response is why signature-based controls are basically ineffective here. They're hunting for a fixed target, but PyStoreRAT is a moving one. The moment it senses danger, it takes evasive maneuvers before it even deploys its main payload.
So if it successfully evades the defenses, what's the big payout for the attackers? What's the objective?
High-value data theft. PyStoreRAT delivers multiple payloads, but the one that really sets off alarm bells is the Rhadamanthys stealer.
Rhadamanthys.
It's a dedicated data exfiltration tool. It focuses on harvesting credentials, browser data, crypto wallets, sensitive documents. For an IT admin or a security analyst, you compromise those credentials. You've just given the attacker access to network infrastructure, internal tools.
You're giving them the keys to the kingdom.
You are. That's what makes the target choice so chilling. They aren't just stealing data, they're stealing the ability to control the entire network.
Did the researchers find any clues about where this campaign might be coming from?
They did. There's a very specific localization check in the code. The investigators found Russian language strings being used. This often acts as a kind of geographic filter, to prevent the malware from running on systems in certain countries.
A way for them to avoid trouble at home.
It's a method used by a lot of sophisticated, sometimes state-aligned threat actors.
And how is that Rhadamanthys stealer actually hidden on the system?
It uses a technique called embedded payloads, T1027.009. This isn't just hiding the file, it's concealing the malicious code inside other legitimate files, sometimes by just tacking data onto the end of a binary. So if you check the file against a hash list, it appears clean.
Because the wrapper file is legitimate.
Exactly. The payload only reveals itself when it's actually running.
Wow. Okay, so they profile the system, they profile the AV, they check the location, and then use these complex embedding techniques. This is so methodical. All right, let's talk resilience. How do they make sure they stay on the system?
That's the core challenge for any APT, right? Surviving a cleanup. PyStoreRAT relies on a unique command and control infrastructure. It operates over standard HTTPS, which is T10701.001, but the architecture itself is designed for survivability.
Tell us about that architecture. What makes this C2 network special?
The analysis called it a circular C2 node architecture. So instead of relying on a fixed set of domains that you can just block,
which is easy enough to do.
Right. This C2 communication uses a rotating, refreshing set of command nodes.
So if I'm a defender and I block C2 node A, what happens?
If you cut off node A, the circular structure just instantly points the malware to node B, then maybe to node C, and eventually back to A if it comes back online. It's like a decentralized mesh. No single address is critical.
That allows them to just refresh modules on demand and pretty much ignore block listing efforts.
It maximizes persistence, absolutely.
Wait, running a circular decentralized C2 sounds like it would require a massive amount of infrastructure. Isn't that expensive for the attackers?
That's an excellent point. It does demand way more resources than a simple single-domain setup. The sophistication suggests a well-funded, maybe even state-backed operation. They're clearly prioritizing resilience over low cost.
Which tells you how valuable their targets are.
Exactly. The potential gain outweighs the operational overhead.
And beyond the network resilience, it seems like they also want to physically spread the malware, right?
Yeah.
To systems that might be air-gapped.
Yes, that's the propagation mechanism, T10092. The malware can copy its payload onto removable media. We're talking USB drives, external hard drives.
That dramatically escalates the danger. Analysts might transfer a report onto a thumb drive, move it to a dev environment, or even a system that isn't connected to the main network.
And suddenly, the malware has jumped the air gap.
Wow.
This capability ensures the threat persists even in highly isolated environments. It turns a local infection into a severe enterprise-wide problem.
Okay, this deep dive has revealed an incredibly sophisticated adversary. So we need to pivot now. Section 4, mitigation and response. What are the concrete steps we can give to the learner right now to defend against this?
We have to structure this in two parts. Proactive mitigation, so prevention and reactive response, which is damage control. Since we know traditional signatures are failing, our focus has to shift to behavior.
Right, so if traditional AZ isn't effective, how do we stop the loader from ever executing its payload?
The first thing is you have to destabilize the malware's environment. The report strongly advises deploying automated moving target defense, or AMTD.
Okay, let's define that. What is AMTD conceptually?
AMTD continuously randomizes key elements of the computing environment, things like memory addresses or process execution paths. PyStoreRAT depends on knowing the static layout of the system to work properly.
So AMTD is constantly moving the floor beneath the malware.
That's a great way to put it. It disrupts the loader's assumptions and blocks those execution routes before the payload can even unpack. It forces the malware to hunt for a target that just keeps moving.
That makes perfect sense. What are some other practical prevention steps?
You need to lean heavily on behavioral and virtualization-based protections. Look at what the code is trying to do, not just its file hash. Practically, that means enforcing strict policies that restrict scripts from untrusted origins, especially JavaScript and HTA files.
And what about the USB risk?
You have to closely monitor and log all removable drive activity, and that logging needs to trigger an immediate, high-priority alert. No exceptions.
Okay, so now what if the worst happens? A behavioral system flags PyStoreRAT activity. What's the immediate response playbook?
Immediate and total isolation. You have to isolate the impacted endpoint right away. That prevents lateral movement and cuts off that physical spread via USB. After that, terminate the backdoor process and scour the system for any persistent modules they left behind, like scheduled tasks.
And the cleanup has to go way beyond just deleting the main file. What's vital for the forensic analysis here?
Forensics is non-negotiable. You have to collect the specific indicators of compromise, the IOCs. Crucially, capture the C2 domains it was talking to, the specific file hashes that were dropped, even those benign-looking wrapper files, and any scheduled tasks.
And that data lets you hunt for the infection across the rest of the network.
Exactly. It's what ensures a true environment-wide cleanup.
And for long-term hardening.
Long-term, you focus on shrinking the attack surface. Patch vulnerable software, of course. But most importantly, enforce strict, least privilege execution policies everywhere. If Rhadamanthys executes under a privileged account, the damage is catastrophic. If it runs under a minimal user context, its ability to cause harm is severely limited.
This deep dive has really shown that PyStoreRAT is a template for the next generation of threats. It's weaponizing the very platform's AI open source code that the security community relies on. The target is the defender, and the exploit is trust.
The summary takeaway is crystal clear. The defense model has to move from static file analysis to dynamic behavioral monitoring. You have to focus on the intent of a process, not just its name.
Which leads us to our final provocative thought for you to explore. Since traditional signatures fail, the only way to win is to identify the precise behavioral signals that define this attack.
Right. If you are defending systems, you need to configure alerts for these specific, sometimes cryptic, detection categories you see in threat intel reports. For instance, you should be watching for suspicious OLA-based MSHTA defense evasion behavior.
OLA-based being living off the land binaries and scripts.
Exactly. The use of legitimate tools like MSHTA for malicious purposes. You should also prioritize alerts for unusual top-level domain DNS requests. That could be your sign of communication with those rotating C2 nodes.
And what about that first point of contact?
Well, perhaps the most actionable initial signal is the log entry showing detection of dormant GitHub account reactivation for malicious projects. The key is to look beyond a simple file signature and focus on the behavior of the accounts and the execution path on the endpoint.
That level of detailed behavioral analysis is how you win this fight.
It's the only way.
Thank you for joining us for this crucial deep dive. Stay vigilant, and we'll see you next time.